Andrew has requested me on Patreon to review the 2001 movie Blow, a biopic on the life of drug smuggler George Jung. This follows the classic template of a character's rise and fall, and the impact their choices have on not only themselves, but their family as well. One of the main things that stood out to me about the film is that it felt very inspired by Martin Scorsese movies. Scorsese has done quite a few of these rise and fall narratives, most notably with Goodfellas and The Wolf of Wall Street. The structure, directing style, and use of narration especially call to mind his work, and Scorsese even gets thanked in the credits. I certainly won't fault Blow for doing that, and it does an okay job of utilizing that approach in telling Jung's story. What I found the most intriguing part of the film was how it depicted his relationship with his parents. How does a parent react to finding out that offspring is a drug smuggler? The movie seeks to show this and how his mother and father each have different reactions to this. Ray Liotta is particularly great as his father, who's depicted as a generally good person, although still with plenty of flaws, and tries his best to understand his son, and hoping he chooses the right path. Johnny Depp also gives good performance as George Jung. We're so accustomed to seeing him play more wacky characters in recent years that most have forgotten that he has the ability to give more naturalistic performances. Director Ted Demme puts together some solid scenes showing Jung becoming further involved in this lifestyle and everything eventually coming down on him. One major issue that hampered the film for me, though, is it feels like several pivotal scenes have been cut. The story tends to jump around a lot, and it feels like we're missing crucial character development or off-screen events are briefly explained away in the narration. For example, in the beginning of the movie, Jung is shown working alongside his friend Tuna, played by Ethan Suplee. However, all of a sudden, Tuna is gone and not seen again in the movie. Only the narration tells us what might have happened to him. The same thing with Jung's relationship with his first girlfriend. After she reveals she does not have long to live, the movie immediately cuts to her funeral. Blow feels like a movie that should be 2.5 to 3 hours long, but was then cut down to 2 hours. I don't know whether this was a request by New Line Cinema or something the filmmakers felt was the right choice, but I do think the film would benefit from a longer cut. Another example of this comes from the depiction of his wife Martha, played by Penelope Cruz. Even though Cruz is second billed and is featured on the poster, she surprisingly does not show up until about an hour in. That's understandable, as he was already well into his career when they met and married. However, she is not given that substantial of a role aside from being the wife. She was apparently a lot more involved in his operations than the film portrays, but in the movie they mostly depict her as being constantly on drugs with the occasional spat, and then they're divorced. More successful is how the movie shows Jung's relationship with his daughter Christina, played by Emma Roberts in her first film role. We see how much he cares about her and how much that drives him to try and be a better person and father to her. Again, this is something I wish they gave more screen time to, but the scenes we're shown are still quite good. A pivotal figure who appears very briefly in the movie is the famous Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar. You expect him to appear more, but it feels like several of his scenes were cut. I also admit I was distracted by the casting, as he's played by Cliff Curtis, who last I checked is a Maori New Zealander, not Latin American. Despite plenty of omissions, George Jung said he was pleased with how the film depicted his life. He felt the film was mostly accurate, and despite his initial doubts when told Johnny Depp was going to play him, he came away satisfied with his performance. Something I was surprised to see during the opening titles was that Denis Leary served as a producer on Blow. However, it made sense when I found out that Ted Demme and Leary were close collaborators, with Demme directing him in films like The Ref and Who's the Man. He even directed a couple of Leary's stand-up comedy specials. Sadly, Ted Demme died less than a year after the release of Blow, at the age of 38. It wound up his last narrative feature, and it's unfortunate we never got to see more of his movies. Overall, while Blow presents an interesting overview of George Jung's life and career, I do think it necessitated a longer runtime with less jumping forward in the timeline. There's a great film hidden underneath what winds up a pretty standard biopic in the end. Anyway, let me know what you think of Blow in the comments, and thank you for the request, Andrew.